Today we're going to talk a little bit about confidentiality. Confidentiality. The rules associated with confidentiality can be a little sticky, and it's very much front and center in society today, the need to protect a person's private information, especially when it comes to healthcare and other issues. Confidentiality is key and critical. So basically, all of those who are privy to client information are bound by rules of confidentiality. They must keep the client's information confidential or private. They are bound by those rules. However, there are exceptions, and today we're going to go over some of the exceptions to the rules of confidentiality. So instead of describing the rules of confidentiality, we're instead going to talk about the exceptions to that and some of the limitations on those exceptions to rules of confidentiality. So number one, when we think about exceptions to the rules of confidentiality, are subpoenas. If a court subpoenas information, they are allowed and must receive the information subpoenaed. However, the limitation is only the information explicitly required by the subpoena. Just because a subpoena shows up does not mean that you then upend the dump truck and say, here's everything. The subpoena will be very specific. We are looking for this information. The information explicitly requested must be supplied. So you find out what's required and you give that and only that. So it's a limited exception to the rules of confidentiality. Two, for treatment continuity, certain information will need to be passed on. So for instance, a health care provider is providing care in a given context, and for whatever reason, due to vacation, medical leave or maternity leave, an illness, whatever it might be, they are then removed from the care of that patient or person. Because they leave doesn't mean that the person's care must stop. So someone else is brought in to pick up the slack, and that person who's brought in to continue the treatment must be brought up to speed on the information about that person and that case. So to provide continuity of care, rules of confidentiality don't have to be kept. The person now providing the care has got to be given that information. So for treatment continuity, because one person is left for vacation, leave, or illness, does not mean that the patient's care ends. Three, insurance coverage. Insurance companies, in order to cover things, they require certain information be supplied to them for liability purposes. Once again, the limitation is those things and only those things necessary for them to determine liability. They're not allowed to know everything, and just because they've made a request doesn't mean, once again, you upend the dump truck. Remember, the whole thing of confidentiality and the rules of confidentiality is to protect the patient. But with these exceptions, certain information can, should, and must be shared. So when an insurance company says, look, we know you're providing treatment for this patient, we're providing the money, the insurance for it, we need to know for liability purposes this, this, and this. And if those things are legitimate, then that information needs to be supplied. It is an exception to the rules of confidentiality. Number four, the client themselves may request certain information be supplied to certain parties. When this is the case, and obviously if the person says, this is my information, I control it, and I'm not worried about confidentiality in cases of the following things, then you're not bound by the rules of confidentiality. As a matter of fact, what you're bound by is the client telling you, I want you to supply this information to this party. I want them to know. Please don't keep it from them. So in that case, the best course of action is to get it in written form. Would you, if possible, would you write out for me those that you want the information freely shared with, or whom the rules of confidentiality don't apply to? So in this case, it may be a clergy person, family members, other things like this. If the patient or client explicitly says the rules of confidentiality don't apply here and I want you to supply the information, if you can get it in written form, do so, and then comply. Then five, mandated reporting. Mandated reporting. There are some things that, according to the law, and once again, insurance purposes and subpoenas, the reporting of abuse, things like this are required. You can't go and say, well, rules of confidentiality, I know I'm supposed to report evidence of abuse, but I can't, rules of confidentiality. No, it's mandated reporting. You must report it. You must pass on the information in that case. And once again, to the insurance company and whatever information is subpoenaed by a court of law. So the exception would be for lawful mandated reporting. And then number six, for the child welfare. If the patient or client happens to be a child, in their case, their welfare is paramount. In order to preserve their welfare, you may have to make some exceptions to the rules of confidentiality. Once again, we talk about 5 with mandated reporting. If in the case of a child there is evidence of abuse, physical or sexual, some nature, that abuse must be reported. You can't leave it under the rules of confidentiality. If they are causing harm to themselves or to others, that also must be reported. And then if there are any legal violations, those must be reported. And a parent or guardian must be informed as well, because they are in the care, the child is in the care of the parent or the guardian. So these are some of the exceptions to the rules of confidentiality. Remember, the basic thing is people have a right to confidentiality. They have a right to keep their information private. But there are exceptions to that right and to those rules. We've gone over 6 of those. If you want to learn more about this or related matters, underneath this video you'll see a link. If you'll click on that link, it'll take you to the website that has that information. And while you're on that website, you'll also find a link to an ebook that's ready for immediate download.
We are going to talk about the actions of muscles. The main actions that muscles take are isometric, isokinetic, and isotonic. Isometric action is a stable, unmoving action of the muscle. It is a static exercise, meaning the muscle and the joint does not move and the muscle does not change length. Isometric exercise can strengthen the muscle, but only in the position that the exercise was held. Isokinetic exercises require a machine. It's a motion that's made on a machine that controls the speed and the force of the movement. Isotonic or dynamic action moves the muscle visibly. It is a motion most often associated with standard muscle training. It can be broken down into 2 phases. The concentric phase, which is the positive contraction, which is usually the lifting action. It is working against resistance, and this causes a shortening of the muscle. The eccentric phase is the negative contraction, which causes the lengthening. It is typically the extension phase of the exercise. So the muscles can perform isometric or static exercise, isokinetic action, requiring a machine to control the speed and the force of the movement, or isotonic, which is the actual movement of the muscle and joint, typically referred to in standard muscle training.
Today we want to briefly go over assisting touch, how touch can help in therapy and helping others, specific touches and holds to teach and instruct people as you're seeking to help them. So I'm just going to go over these that I've got here on the board briefly. When we think about a maintained touch, this is a touch that is used to help a person. You're using your hand, either holding their hand or touching an appropriate place of their body to help them maintain or hold a position. It's called maintained touch. So at that point you're using your hand on their hand or on an appropriate body part to say, hold this position, don't move. A palpation touch is a soft touch of your fingertips, usually showing which muscle group is being worked. It's gentle and not forceful or direct, but sort of a gentle touch showing, hey, this is the muscle group that's being worked here. The knife edge touch has to do with this edge of your hand here as you drag it down a particular muscle group of the body, showing which way the muscle is contracting. So you're trying to educate and teach, and you use the edge of your hand saying the muscle contract this way or that way. And then finally, when we talk about assisting touch, there's the move away and move towards touch, which has to do with getting the person to retreat from, that's the move away, or move in the direction of your hand. So once again, touch can be a great assistant for you in helping people in education, in therapy, in rehabilitation, in all those ways. So the maintained touch, hand on hand, hand to appropriate body part, hold this position, don't move. The palpation, soft, gentle touch, appropriately on the muscle group, showing which muscle is being worked. The knife edge of the hand dragged along the part where the muscle is contracting to illustrate where that's happening, and the move away and move towards touch or hand gesture related to letting the person know to move away from, retreat from, or move in the direction of your hand. So this has just been a brief overview of various types of assistive touch. If you'd like to learn more about this or related matters, underneath this video you'll see a link. If you'll click on that link, it'll take you to the website that has that information, and while you're at that website, you'll also find a link to an ebook that's ready for immediate download. Hi, today we're going to talk a little bit about circuit training. Circuit training is a type of training that links together a series of exercises, between 4 to 10 different exercises, and introduces a short rest, a brief rest, in between each exercise as they're all done in a circuit. Now, circuit training is good for muscle endurance, muscle strength, and cardiovascular fitness. It combines all of these together, which makes it a great way to train. You get maximum benefit, overall body fitness, because you've linked together these 4 to 10 exercises with brief rest, high intensity, and it builds power, strength, endurance, and because it's done rapidly with brief periods of rest between, cardiovascular health as well. So one of its greatest positive benefits of circuit training is its versatility. It can be shaped or put together to emphasize one type of benefit over another. For example, a power-based circuit would basically emphasize short time periods of doing the exercise, longer rests between exercises, but once again done with high intensity. So short duration of the exercise, longer rest periods, high intensity, you build power. If you want to do an endurance-based circuit, then what you would do is have longer time periods of engaging in the exercise, shorter rest periods in between, but the same high intensity. And the high intensity is what makes the circuit training beneficial. So it's versatile. It can be tweaked or shaped to either build power or endurance. It promotes overall health, muscle endurance, muscle strength, and cardiovascular fitness. And it's linking together in a series between 4 and 10 different exercises, usually involving the whole body or large muscle groups in the body. If you'd like to learn more about circuit training and things related to it, there's a link beneath this video. Click on it, it'll take you to a website where you can find out more, and at that website you'll also find an ebook ready for immediate download. Today we're going to talk about fat. Now, everyone assumes that fat is automatically a bad thing, but actually fat is a necessary part of our health. It's excessive fat that's the problem. And so we're going to just go over some of the basic good and bad of fats, and then refer you to another website where you can get more information. But we're going to begin by just looking at some of the good things, the beneficial things related to fat. First, fat helps provide insulation for the body. If you've ever noticed, people who have excessive body fat in warm climates need to keep the air conditioning set very low, whereas those who have very little body fat tend to get very cold easily, even in rooms that are of moderate temperature. So the amount of body fat you have actually acts as insulation, which can be good or bad depending on the climate and how much body fat you have. So the fat in your body actually acts partially as an insulator to keep in body heat. Next, fats are good because they help the transportation of fat-soluble vitamins into your system. So some vitamins are water-soluble, other vitamins are fat-soluble. The fat-soluble vitamins need the fats in order to transport them into your system, and therefore you get the good out of them. Now, the downside of fat-soluble vitamins is that if you take too many of these, you get an overdose of them. It's stored in the fat and can become toxic. So you need to be careful about the quantity of fat-soluble vitamins you take, but the fat is necessary for the transportation of those vitamins into your system. Next, fat helps provide a source of energy to your body. If carbohydrates are not available, which rapidly get turned into sugars and other things for body energy, then your body can grab a hold of the fats, which is basically stored energy, and keep you going. So your body will actually want to store fats against future needs, so that as you try to lose weight, sometimes your body works against you. It starts to worry, hey, wait a minute, we don't have enough storage here. If you lose more fat, the body gets worried that there won't be energy in case it's needed in the future, and sometimes works against you in weight loss. But basically, fats are stored future energy, and so fat is an energy source for the body. Also, fats are essential in the creation of linoleic acid, which is an essential acid in the body. Fats help in the production of that particular necessary acid. So those are some of the goods when we think about fat. Some of the bads, though, are related to our health of excessive fat. If you eat excessive fats and therefore develop excessive fat on your body, it leads to weight gain, which can lead to stroke and heart disease, which of course are deadly. None of that's good. And so what you need to do is keep your intake of fats less than 30% of your daily caloric intake. Less than 30% of your daily caloric intake should be from fats of all kinds. So when you add up the various saturated and unsaturated fats and that sort of thing, you want to keep it less than 30% of your daily intake of calories. Now, most people say that the bad fat is cholesterol, but cholesterol is not all bad. It comes in two types, high-density lipoprotein and low-density lipoprotein, with the shorter acronyms of HDL and LDL. Your cholesterol is considered high if it's above 240 milligrams per deciliter. It's a measurement of density there. And also your HDL and LDL need to be in the correct ratio to one another. If one is high and the other is excessively low, then you have a out of proportion cholesterol reading there. They're too far apart. They're not in a good ratio to one another. And this can also be bad for your health. So these are some of the bads when we think of fats. Too much fat, out of proportion cholesterol, things like that. But fats themselves are a necessary part of our health and living. And if they're used in moderation, kept less than 30% of your daily intake, they're not bad. They're actually good. They provide a lot of beneficial benefits to the body. This has been just a basic overview then, talking briefly about some of the facts related to fats. If you'd like to learn more about this or related matters, underneath this video, you'll find a link. If you'll click on that link, it'll take you to that website that has that information. And while you're on that website, you'll also find a link to an ebook that's ready for immediate download. Anytime someone comes to you desiring perhaps to learn about how to train better, they have health objectives, they want to be more fit or healthy, if you're in the position of providing an assessment and putting together a training program for someone, or you just want to know more about it, I'm going to go over some of the objectives that are critical for that process. So first of all, what you need to do is establish a baseline. Where is someone right now before you start talking about where do you want to go and how are we going to get you there? So the first thing you do in a fitness assessment is, before establishing the objectives, when you do the assessment, you need to look at the following 5 things. And the first thing you need to look at is their heart and lung efficiency, their cardiorespiratory efficiency. You need to know that, once again, to find out where they are right now. Establish that baseline before you move on. Second, you need to know about their dynamic movement or their posture. Where are they there? Where do they want to be? 3, you need to go over their physiology, get their heart rate, their blood pressure, resting, and then perhaps with moderate exertion, just to get an idea of the range there as well. You want to make sure you assess them for their fat and muscle composition, get their body mass index, their waist to hip ratios, things like this. So once again, establishing where they are now as to their fat and muscle, how much fat, percentage body fat, how much muscle composition, get them on the BMI and things like that. And then finally, their athletic ability. And here you might just want to check a baseline. What are they able to do with bench press, squat assessment, this sort of thing. Once again, all of this just to establish this is their level of health right now. This is their level of fitness right now. This is where they are as a baseline. This is what they're capable of. You don't want to take someone without doing any sort of assessment and say, let's go run 5 miles, if they're not capable of achieving that because of these issues here. So you begin a fitness assessment with their cardiorespiratory efficiency, their posture, heart rate, blood pressure, BMI, waist to hip ratio, bench press and squat, and you collate all that together to get a snapshot or a picture of what someone's capable of. From there, you can then establish a fitness program. It allows you to compare as you move along. Okay, this is where they were, this is where we are now as you're going along, to assess progress and also to see how effective the program was. So for effectiveness and for measuring progress for a particular regimen, you've got to have this beginning information. So before you get started recommending anything, get the baseline and then work from there. If you'd like to know more about this and things related to it, beneath this video, there's a link. Click on it. It'll take you to a website with that information. Also on that website, you'll find a link to an ebook that's ready for immediate download. Today we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about several methods or ways that you can help people reduce the amount of fat eaten in their diet. How to reduce the amount of fat that is consumed in a person's diet. I've got 7 ways on the board here behind me. Obviously this does not exhaust the topic, but just to give us a basic overview and to talk about things that you can do not only for yourself but to help others reduce the amount of fat eaten in their diet. So the first one, we talk about the importance of nutritional labels, the importance of nutritional labels. The government requires nutritional labels on food to talk about the amount of fat in that particular product. And so in educating someone on how to reduce the amount of fat in their diet, you need to teach them how to read a nutritional label and say, always look at the back before you buy the product. And if you're going to consume it, obviously you can't do this for restaurants, although actually some restaurants do print fat content for various things that you order off the menu, especially fast food places. But essentially, when they're buying their own food and looking at these things, you tell them to look at the nutritional label, see the amount of fat per serving, do the simple calculations to figure out how much would be consumed in your average serving, and realize that the goal then is that less of their daily caloric intake, less than 30% of it should be from fat. So less than 30% of the daily calories consumed need to be from fat. So you're trying to get their calorie fat consumption less than 30%. So nutritional labels are key to that. Number 2, encourage them to eat more fish and chicken and less red meat. So if they can make a swap, if you will. Okay, you might want a hamburger here, instead have the chicken sandwich. You want a steak, why not have the fish? So encourage them to make these swaps and eat more fish and chicken and less red meat. Third, encourage them to eat more vegetables and less meat. So we've already made the meat swap, and then from there, increase vegetables, decrease the amount of meat eaten per day, per meal. Perhaps if you can get a salad in without chicken on it and not too much dressing, you reduce the amount of fat and the calories coming in are more healthy. So that helps with eating more vegetables, less meat. Number 4, encourage them to eat smaller portions. Sometimes someone wants to eat something that they really like. It's got high fat content. Tell them that's okay. Just eat less. You don't have to fill up on this or eat a huge amount. Choose smaller portions. And if they were to do this not just on the time that they feel like they're cheating, eating something that's higher in fat, but for all they're eating, to lessen the portions that they're eating. Eat less portions per meal reduces the amount of calories coming in overall and certainly reduces the amount of calories coming in from fat. So eat smaller portions. And then 5, when they're given the choice between saturated fats, trans fats, and unsaturated fats, to always choose the unsaturated fats. So once again, the nutrition labels are key here, but eat unsaturated fats and try to avoid saturated fats and trans fats. Between saturated and trans fats are obviously the worst. So stay away from the trans fats altogether if you're able to. Saturated fats, keep them to a minimum, and prioritize, if you are going to have fats, unsaturated fats. And then 6, in food preparation, encourage them to not fry the food. Or for yourself, I want to lower my amount of fat consumed, so when I'm going to prepare my food, or I'm going to have my food prepared by another, or I'm telling someone else about food preparation, don't fry the food. You're frying it in fat, which of course adds to the fat content of the food. Find other ways that are just as tasty to prepare the food without frying it. And then finally, number 7, eat less snack foods. Now, we're not saying snack less, we're eating less snack type foods. Snack type foods are going to be like potato chips and cookies and things like that that obviously are going to be high in the fat content. If you need a snack, eat an apple, have some carrots, things like this. So snacking is okay, but when you're snacking, more vegetables, less snack type foods that are high in fat, usually saturated and trans fats. These are just some of the ways that you, in educating someone else or for yourself, can encourage less fat intake in the diet and thereby improve health. There are obviously more things that can be said under this way, but there are 7 ways to reduce fat in a person's diet. Nutrition labels, key. Information, you need that information. Nutrition labels, eat more fish, less red meat, more chicken, less red meat, eat more vegetables, less meat, smaller portions, unsaturated fats, don't fry your food, and try to minimize and or get rid of the snack foods. If you'd like to learn more about this or related matters, underneath this video you'll see a link. If you'll click on that link, it'll take you to that website, And while you're at that website, you'll find a link to an ebook that's ready for immediate download. When people think about weight loss, it's something that's on the mind of quite a few people, and they want to know, what are the strategies? What can I do? What should I do? What should I not do? The following are just a few suggestions that can help you if you're in the place of wanting to offer advice to someone who's wanting to lose weight. If they ask you, what can I specifically do? Now, most people want to hear, I can take a pill and look like a weightlifter or a supermodel, and that's just not realistic, nor is it healthy, and the goal ought to be long-term health, not just short-term weight loss. So in terms of long-term health, we're going to go over some things here that you can use as suggestions to help people who want to be healthier and who want to lose weight. The first one, and the most important one, is that diet plus exercise is still the best way to promote long-term health and to lose weight. People don't like to hear that, but it's fact. It's reality. If you exercise to get your body healthy and you eat less than you use, you will lose weight, you will be more healthy. So diet and exercise are critical to people's health and to weight loss, and you have to get them over that hurdle. You got to let them know that, hey, the diet isn't extreme, nor do we want to make you lose a rapid amount of weight instantly. It's going to be over the long haul. As your health improves and as your diet improves, your weight will go down. So diet and exercise still the best way to help people lose weight. Next, get them to make changes, even small changes, but whatever changes they make sure they are changes for long-term health, not short-term weight loss. If they go on a particular diet that promises to help them lose 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 pounds, and it's just a short-term change, all of that weight will come right back. And it may even add more, which of course psychologically discourages the person. It does not improve their health. Yo-yoing the body like that up and down is not helpful. So help them make small incremental changes with always the goal beyond just the immediate weight loss to long-term health. So convince them that diet and exercise is important or critical, and then just making changes that always have the idea of long-term health in view. I am making a lifestyle choice here, not just a short-term temporary change so I can shed a few pounds. Next, help them do something measurable. Help them burn, in a measurable way, 500 more calories a day than they consume. So if they're on a 2,000 calorie a day diet, help them burn 2,500 calories so that there's a point at which they are burning more than they are consuming, and therefore each day they're losing a little bit more weight. So use 500 more calories than you actually consume each day. 4, beware of setting a perfect weight goal. This is very dangerous because, once again, it's not long-term health. I'm not making a lifestyle change. I'm just driving myself to get to this magic number, whatever that is. And once I get there, then I can quit all the changes I've made and go back to the way things were before because I've reached the magic number. There is no perfect weight. I mean, I know we've got body mass indexes, indices, and all that kind of stuff. It's not body mass and weight, it's health. So try to keep out of their mind these ideas of, I've got to get down to this weight. It's like, no, you need to make small incremental changes to get healthy, and the weight will slowly come off over time. Next, give them as much education as possible by looking at their life and then comparing it to a healthy lifestyle. So eating patterns. When do you eat? Why do you eat them? Do you traditionally snack a lot before going to bed? Why is that? When you go through the grocery store, do you go well-fed or hungry? Makes a difference on the choices you make, or the restaurants you visit. So in one sense, you need to give them good education about their eating patterns and about shopping patterns. When you go, why you go, do you graze while you shop, do you try all the samples, things like this, just to make little changes. Eat, then go shopping. You're less likely to snack as you go, less likely to buy things that are really poor for your health. So education on eating patterns, their eating patterns as compared to healthy eating patterns, their shopping patterns as compared to healthy shopping patterns. Next, talk to them about portion control. It's not that you're eating pizza, it's that you're eating a whole pizza. A slice or two of pizza is not bad, but an entire pizza is a problem. So talk to them about portion control. You can have what you want, just keep it smaller. And then next, have them keep a log of their food so that you can get a snapshot of a day, a week, and maybe even a month. Here is how you ate, when you ate, how much you ate. Perhaps even have them include things about their mental and emotional state. I was bored, and so I snacked. I was depressed, and so I ate comfort food. Things like this. I was stressed, so I went and grabbed a Twinkie, and don't berate them for that. Just keep the log and get a snapshot of when they eat, why they eat, and how much they eat, so that you can help them make small changes, once again, for long-term health. And then last, let them know that occasional cheating is okay. We're not trying to drive them into the ground or make them miserable, but that the long haul, the overall path that they are on, is a healthy one. If your trajectory is healthy, the occasional extra cookie is not going to derail it. We can get back on track. It's not a problem. So occasional cheating is okay. Well, this is just a smattering of ideas, weight loss suggestions that can help people who are seeking to lose weight. If you'd like to learn more about this and related matters, there's a link underneath this video. Click on it. It'll take you to a website. And at that website, along with that other information, you'll also find there a link to an ebook that's ready for immediate download. All right, today we're going to talk about how to find percentage body fat. And this is done using calipers and millimeters, measuring skin folds, pinches of skin folds at 4 different areas. It begins with a vertical pinch of skin on top of the bicep, about halfway between the elbow and the shoulder. The second place then is on the tricep, on the back of the arm, a vertical pinch or fold of skin, once again halfway between the shoulder and the elbow. Those two are measured in millimeters. And then you go to the person's back, about 2 centimeters below their scapula, the shoulder blade, and there you're going to pinch a fold of skin at a 45-degree angle and measure that. And then finally, the last place you're going to go is the iliac crest, or basically the pelvis at the top, just above that, at a 45-degree angle, with the top of that 45-degree angle going towards the person's armpit. Once you have the measurements then from each of these 4 places, vertical pinch at the bicep, vertical pinch at the tricep, 45-degree at the subscapular, and 45-degree just above the iliac crest, you take those 4 measurements together and you put them in the proper formula, and that will churn out for you the percentage body fat. This particular method works well for those between the ages of 17 and about 65. Stress. It's something that every human being goes through at one point in their life or another, often multiple times, and sometimes over a prolonged period. The universal human response to stress has been dubbed the General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS for short. It has 3 stages. The General Adaptation Syndrome, or the GAS response to stress, has 3 stages, and we're going to go over those now. The first stage is called stimulation. At this stage, the stress has been introduced to the person, and their body responds by the hypothalamus stimulating the adrenal medulla to release epinephrine or adrenaline. Epinephrine and adrenaline are the same thing depending on what part of the world you're in. They're going to favor one or the other. Epinephrine is the Greek-derived word for this hormone, and adrenaline is the Latin-derived word for this hormone, but they're the same thing. So the hypothalamus stimulates the adrenal medulla and releases epinephrine. The glucose level rises, the heart and respiration rates increase, and the individual becomes alarmed. We've all experienced this. Stress comes in, things heat up, adrenaline or epinephrine is released, heart rate goes up, respiration goes up, and the person is in a state of readiness, alarm, fight or flight in some ways. So the gas response then is managed by the adrenal and the pituitary glands. So the first level then is stimulation. If the stress is not resolved at this level, then the second stage that the General Adaptation Syndrome goes to is resistance. At this stage, the body resists the stress by returning respiration and heart rates to baseline. The hypothalamus commands the pituitary gland to release ACTH, a hormone that causes the adrenal cortex to release cortisol. Cortisol is a chemical that maintains high levels of blood glucose. So this is once again the body's attempt to deal with whatever is bringing about the stress. So stimulation puts a person in an alarmed or heightened state. It persists, resistance comes in, the body trying to bring things into line, into a normal state. Once again, the hypothalamus is critical to all this. In the initial stage, it stimulates the adrenal medulla to release epinephrine. In the next state, it commands the pituitary gland to release the hormone ACTH, which causes the adrenal cortex to release cortisol to keep the blood glucose levels high. Finally, if the stress is not resolved, the third stage for the general adaptation or gas syndrome is exhaustion. Here, the pituitary and adrenal glands are utterly fatigued. The physiological processes start to break down. And it is this stage right here, this exhaustion stage, that if it is prolonged is most damaging to health. So stress management is extremely important. Stress comes into everyone's life. The universal response of every human being experiencing various levels of stress has been generalized as the gas adaptation or the general adaptation syndrome. It has three stages: stimulation, resistance, and then exhaustion, this stage being the most damaging to health. The hypothalamus involved in this. First stage, releasing epinephrine. Second stage, releasing ACTH in order to get cortisol to come out and raise the blood glucose levels. And then finally, when the pituitary and adrenal glands are utterly fatigued, everything begins to break down and the health begins to deteriorate. If you'd like to read more and learn more about stress and find out exploration more in this area, then please click on the link beneath this video. It'll take you to a website where you can study further, and you'll also find an ebook there ready for immediate download.